Today I'm here with a very important guest that I've based a lot of my research around for the last several years. This is a subject that is widely suppressed in the mainstream scholarship of shamanism and South American, Mesoamerican history in general. I personally feel that my guest today is a pioneer in this field of study. And I'm talking about Professor Neil Whitehead, who is Professor of Anthropology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Whitehead graduated from Oxford University in 1984 with his PhD in anthropology. He's the author and editor of several books, including his latest, Hans Staden's True History, an account of cannibal captivity in Brazil, edited by him and Michael Harbsmeyer. And in 2005, he wrote Terror and Violence, Anthropological Approaches. In 2004, he wrote Violence, and one of my favorite books of his, and by the way, Neil, you are one of my all-time favorite authors.
Well, thank you, Jan.
You're welcome. His 2004 book, In Darkness and Secrecy, The Anthropology of Occult Sorcery and Witchcraft in Amazonia. And he wrote also in 2004, 19th Century Travels, Explorations and Empires, Writings from the Era of Imperial Consolidation. And then in 2003, he wrote Histories and Historicities in Amazonia. And probably one of his more famous works, at least to me anyway, and very important to my own studies, is his 2002 work, Dark Shamans, Kanema and the Poetics of Violent Death. And his first book, it looks like, was in 2001, Beyond the Visible and the Material. Welcome aboard, Neil. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you very much. It's good to be with you, and thank you very much for those generous comments. There are a few more books before 2001, actually, but let's not bore your audience any further.
I'm with that. In Darkness and Secrecy, you and Robin Wright wrote, quote, Shamanism is a burgeoning obsession for the middle classes around the globe. Its presentation in popular books, TV specials, and on the internet is dominated by the presumed psychic and physical benefits that shamanic techniques can bring. This heightened interest has required a persistent purification of the ritual practices of those who inspire the feverish quest for personal meaning and fulfillment. Ironically, as Fasto points out in his essay in this volume, In Darkness and Secrecy, given the self-improvement motivations that have brought so many into popular understanding of shamanism, two defining aspects of shamanism in Amazonia, blood, i.e. violence, and tobacco, have simply been erased from such representations. Such erasure is not only a vain self-deception, but more important, it is a recapitulation of colonial ways of knowing through both the denial of radical cultural difference and refusal to think through its consequences.
Absolutely.
And I think.
But I mean there, the rhetoric is, more directed to, not anthropologists working in Amazonia so much as those who, kind of pick up on the secondary literature. I mean, it's a, statement about how, in popular terms, I think, much shamanism is understood. Now, certainly, I think we are, sort of pioneering this aspect of things. So I think that's the case. But as I, have been stressing, I think the reason it hasn't been taken up is less to do, perhaps with, a kind of willful sort of ignoring of realities than it is, the fact that there's a pressing agenda in other senses. But more widely, and in a figure like Michael Harner, for example, most certainly, academics have been no less responsible than anyone else, for, promoting this rather cheery image. So, it is, as I say, I think there's a number of reasons why this kind of topic doesn't get talked about as much as it might. But at the same time, I, absolutely stick by what we say in Darkness and Secrecy, in that I think, quite apart from whether people are prepared to engage this kind of material, it is certainly the case anyway that the whole sort of idea of shamanism has been terribly bloated and elaborated out of all proportion to any of the, realities that we encounter as anthropologists anyway.
Well, on my forum on the GnosticMedia.com website, I actually have a section there dedicated to dark shamanism, and I think it's probably the only place I've seen anywhere online that, other than yourself, that is even focused or even, for that matter, discussing the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people necessarily want to hear this. And, certainly making presentations on such topics in meetings, professional meetings, can draw the kind of reaction that, really can't you find anything more, positive to talk about? So, there's definitely professional pressure to talk about other things. And, I applaud you absolutely for very much being prepared to, think about this material, because it certainly poses a lot of problems. There's no doubt that Canaima ritual killing, is homicide. It is very cruel. And it absolutely would be considered criminal under any standard legal system. But of course the challenge then is to understand and hopefully explain why, despite that, it is something that needs to be taken seriously, in my own case ultimately respected, but certainly, is not sort of a candidate for suppression either intellectually or, by more direct means. For in many ways, I think our ideas about terrorism share a lot with how people react to ideas of witchcraft or dark shamanism. So we're also at a moment where I think for lots of reasons we need to think very carefully about the violence of others and how it may be related or how it stands in comparison to our own evidently violent capacities.
And I must thank you for bringing a balance to this entire field of research, because really without your work and possibly Wade Davis's, there's really nothing else out there on this topic.